you should see that message pop up shortly. Alrighty, so we'll get started. Okay, so again, this is the virtual Lunch and Learn of the Student National Medical Association. And we're just going to tell you a little bit about ourselves and our organization, and then we'll do an introduction of the panelists, and then we'll have an opportunity to answer a lot of questions. Okay, so the first thing on our agenda is to really understand what is SNMA. So SNMA, also known as the Student National Medical Association, was founded in 1964 on the campus of Howard University. And essentially the mission of SNMA is to support underrepresented minority medical students, all with the aim and the goal of increasing diversity in medicine. What we all desire is to make our healthcare providers look as diverse as the patients that they serve. So what do? We do a lot of service in the community and in Ohio at large, and then we also do a lot of leadership. So this year, SNMA held its first ever Health Equity Summit, and that was open to nursing students, healthcare students, dental students, all students within the OSU campus and abroad. And we talked a lot about how to address healthcare disparities within Columbus. And I think that was one of the first ever health equity summits to actually address disparities in Columbus. And that was a success. We also held Making It to Medical School, which was an opportunity for MAPS members, which is our undergraduate chapter, and other underrepresented minority students to kind of understand what it's like to be a first-year medical student, and that was a success as well. So moving on, what do? We support one another, and one of the ways that we do that is by really emphasizing support in our different groups. So what we have is Black Men in Medicine as well. So I'm going to ask Tommy and Javon, two of our SNMA e-board members, to talk a little bit about what Black Men in Medicine is.
Hello, everyone. My name's Tommy. So OSU is definitely unique due to their commitment to diversity. And there's a lot of Black male leadership at the College of Medicine. And one cool thing we do is, like, every semester we get together to meet with like the attendings, residents, med students, and even some of the undergrad pre-meds. And it's just like a nice time for fellowship and networking. Javon and Spencer, do you guys have anything you'd like to add?
Definitely agree with Tommy with what he said. And Black Men in Medicine is definitely a group where us as minority Black men, we can facilitate our professional development and networking and growth within OSU. And I think that's very special that the leadership reaches out to students and takes care of us. So yeah, I really appreciate Black Men in Medicine.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that it provides a pretty good opportunity for a lot of reflection. I kind of agree with what was said before, but it also provides opportunities for networking as well with a lot of the African American leadership. They definitely look out for a lot of the people looking for research or other opportunities or otherwise. So I think it's really good.
So in addition to Black Men in Medicine, we don't leave the girls hanging as well. So also a part of our programming this year was to host something for the women as well. It was not just a networking opportunity, but a space where we met with the female physicians and staff and faculty members in Columbus and in OSU. And we just had open and honest conversations about what it's like to be a minority student navigating through the medical school curriculum. So what else do? We provide mentorship networking and professional development. And here are some pictures for some programming that we've done this year. Some more pictures. Okay, and I think another thing that we do is we have a lot of fun. So our newly elected e-board made a trailer video just celebrating the start of our new year. Okay, so now we're gonna move into the part of the virtual launch and learn where we get to introduce our panelists. So we're gonna ask our panelists to share their name, hometown, undergraduate program, and what they're involved in on campus. And I'll start. Again, my name is Debbie Fadoju. I'm an M1. I'm originally from Nigeria, born. I was raised in Baltimore. Hometown is Baltimore. I went to Howard University where I studied biology. And within SNMA, I serve as the president. And then some other things I do on campus are volunteering with the Columbus Free Clinic. And then also I serve as a curriculum coordinator for a program called Heads Up.
Hi, my name is Ali or Alessandra. I'm also an M1. I am the vice president of SNMA. I'm from Cleveland. I went to Ohio State for undergrad. And some things that I'm involved in outside of SNMA are I'm in a crochet club, and I'm also on the executive board of the Pediatric Interest Group. And I like to volunteer at the New Life Free Clinic, which is a free clinic that serves the homeless population.
I'm Tommy Mengesha. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I went to OSU for undergrad. Some things I'm involved in, I'm vice president of Heads Up. I also volunteer at the local free clinics. And I guess like one thing I'm really proud of is like pre-K through med school's all been in Columbus.
Is Abby here? I can't see the full list of names.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Camry Henking, also an M1. I'm originally from Waldorf, Maryland. I went to Spelman College where I was a biology major. I am the MAPS liaison for SNMA, and then I'm also involved in a couple of interest groups on campus as well.
Going once for Chiamaka? Okay.
Hi guys, my name's Abina. I'm an M1. I went to Ohio State for undergrad and I majored in biology. I'm the community service chair, or co-chair, I should say, of SNMA. And besides SNMA, I'm also involved in different mentorship activities because I'm really passionate about public speaking.
Hi, everybody. My name is Deborah Zaramo. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I went to undergrad at Bowling Green State University, where I studied biology. I am one of the admissions representatives here at SNMA, and I'm involved in some interest groups, but the one that I'm really passionate about is Christian Medical Dental Association, and I'm the treasurer of that.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amran Dumale. I'm originally from New Jersey, although I am a Nigerian. I went to University of Maryland College Park, and things I'm involved in, I'm the political action liaison of SNMA. So I have a strong passion for health disparity. So within last year and this year, just doing the Health Equity Summit, as well as trying to get my podcast up and running. But if you want to check me out, I'm a Reform, just a little plug. So yeah, check it out. It's all about medicine.
Hi, my name is Hafsa Inshar. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, and I went to OSU for undergrad. I'm currently the secretary of SNMA, and in terms of other programs that I'm involved in, I'm also the secretary of LIGHT, which is Leading in Global Health Together, as well as SHINE, which is the Somali Health Initiative in Nutrition Education, where we go into a school of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders and get to teach them about nutrition and health.
I'm Spencer Ward. I'm another M1. I went to Northwestern for undergrad, and I was a cell biology and physiology major there. I also help a lot with a lot of the interview launches and stuff like that, talking to students. A lot of my interests, are around both policy and something called global surgery. So I'm president of Students for National Health Program here at Ohio State, which kind of advocates for single-payer healthcare and educates and informs a lot of the students on what that means and what that entails. And I also am trying to bring a global surgery group to Ohio State, which kind of addresses international disparities in access to quality surgical OB-GYN anesthesiology for a lot of lower income countries. And that's kind of what I do.
Okay, so now we're going to transition into getting to know some of the Second Look attendees. Thank you again to all of the panelists for giving us some information about them. So we're going to ask some of the attendees to let us know their name, their hometown, and their undergraduate program. And it's completely optional.
I can start. My name is Danielle, and I am a pretty non-traditional student. I went to Bowling Green as well. I think there was someone who said they went to BG for undergrad. And then I did my post-bac program at Northwestern. I grew up in the DC, Maryland area, but live in Chicago right now. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
I guess I'll go next. I'm Azante Griffith. I'm from Cincinnati. I'm living there right now. I went to the University of Pittsburgh for undergrad, and I did bioengineering. And I graduated in 2018, and I did like a gap year of research, and now I'm just kind of like relaxing / quarantining before med school. Yeah.
Yes, I'll go next. My name's Amina, and I'm from Mason, Ohio. I went to Ohio State undergrad, just graduated in 2019, and then I majored in public health. And right now I've been working in research at Nationwide Children's.
I'll go next. My name is Ashley Grimes. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I went to undergrad at Emory University, and then I went to the Peace Corps for 2 years in Senegal, and then I got my master's at Case Western. Now I'm just doing research as well.
Okay, thank you all so much for sharing. Oh, is there someone else who wants to go?
Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm from North Carolina. I'm finishing up my senior year at University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and right now I'm quarantining in my hometown of Wake Forest, which is outside of Raleigh.
Okay, I guess I can go next. I'm Napira. I'm from Delaware. I went to University of Maryland for undergrad and studied biochemistry, and then I'm also quarantining at home for right now.
I'll go next. I'm Jude. I'm from Seattle, Washington, and I went to University of Washington for undergrad.
Hi, I'm Brooke. I was raised in Ethiopia, went to undergrad at Baldwin Wallace University, which is like off Cleveland, Ohio. I studied biology, did neuroscience related research at HHMI for the last 2 years, and I'm from the DC area, so I see it as a couple of DC area people. Yep.
Alrighty. Anyone else who wants to share? Any other attendees? Okay. So what we're going to transition to next are some of the submitted questions that some of the attendees have asked, and we're going to ask our panelists to tackle some of them. Okay. So the first question is, what are your usual roles in your research labs as medical students? Are you entering data, doing statistical analyses? Are you able to write papers? Is it the same thing as being an undergraduate research assistant?
So I can answer this one. So in undergrad, my research primarily focused on the effects of secondhand smoke on individuals, specifically pediatrics with sickle cell disease. And it was at Nationwide Children's. So being a double Buckeye, the nice thing about my transition was I was able to, once I started medical school, continue doing my research. But I will definitely say that, like, as a medical student, the responsibilities that I have in my lab and just as far as like what I do have definitely increased. I found that my PI was very receptive once I got into medical school to my saying I wanted to take on more responsibility. In undergrad, I primarily did data entry. I would go to the different, because it's clinical research, so I would go in with them as they would survey the patients, but as far as like actually like interacting with the patients directly was a little bit limited as far as what you can do when you're an undergrad in that regard. But once I got into medical school, I was like more involved in the clinical aspect of it, and I actually got to help in writing a manuscript. I actually wrote parts of it myself entirely, so you definitely get like a lot more responsibility and involvement if that's what you want once you get into medical school.
I can talk a little bit about it. So I've been in this research lab. It's called the Osteo Lab. It's in the plastic surgery department, and we focus on bone scaffolds for transplantation, and predominantly in the face bones. And with my project, I'm working through MDSR, but I found my mentor through MDSR. I think it was like I'm not for sure exactly what it was called, but it was like a presentation of like many different researchers, and it was sponsored through the College of Medicine, and that's where I met my research mentor. When it comes to my project, I'm going to be focusing on some different geometries that help scaffold the bones or whatever the case may be, but I am actually going to be the project leader of that project, and that's entitled of finding people to help me with this project. Obviously, there's PhDs and also my PI that's helping me with it, but it's a lot of responsibility. I took on a lot of responsibility with the project. So it's definitely different, because in undergrad, it was just more or less like, oh, like, you know, do this project, you know, maybe do some data analysis, like come in when you can. But I think it's definitely a different level. And my mentor definitely, my PI definitely understands that I'm in medical school, and that's the top priority. And if I don't, if I'm not successful in medical school, then it's definitely hard in other avenues of my life. So.
Amara, we see your hand raised.
Yeah, just generally about research, I would say that, you know, be cautious about those opportunities. You're going to get a lot of research opportunities that may be flooding your inbox, and you, as a first-year medical student, you're going to want to jump on everything because you want to, you know, want to show that you're very competitive. So I would say when you dedicate your time to research, make sure you have clear expectations, not only from yourself but also from your mentor. What are the deliverables you want to have? What does that timeline look like? So that there's a clear communication and there's an understanding of time, just so you find yourself doing the actual things you want to do, and that you can like literally list out what skills that you gained, so that you can get a paper, and then when you move on to other research opportunities. And also think about, do you want this to be short term, or do you want this something that's going to be long term across your 4 years? So really coming up with a plan. And your research doesn't have to be in the specific field you're interested in. Just know, and you also don't have to do research as well. Just try your best to just follow your heart in terms of what are those things that you're really passionate about, and seeking those opportunities.
Thanks, everyone. So we're going to move on to our next question. So medical school is really challenging and really rewarding. So outside of studying our lectures all day, what does everybody do for fun?
I can comment on that. So right now, a lot of us, it's like amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of us, no, all of us are like doing our last block, which is endocrine reproduction at home. So we're stuck at home all day going through lectures. And a couple of my friends and I, and we can't go outside very much. So a couple of my friends and I, what we do now is that every Saturday night, we Netflix party and watch a movie. And it's like no matter how tough the week has been, how delayed how behind everyone feels, we like get together Saturday night, everyone's at different like time zones and everything. We Netflix party and then just go rant about movies. So that's something that I found to be like really chill and fun, that you can still hang out with friends even though we're doing it virtually. That's one new thing I've discovered in this. So
Okay, I can go next. I know back when we were able to be around each other, one of the things that I really enjoyed doing was hosting parties. So whether that would be a Memorial Day weekend party or honestly, anytime that we have a break after an exam, just kind of like hosting get-togethers and having a lot of fun. I like to play a lot of games, so we've done game nights. I think that that's the cool thing about being in OSU, is that like people are pretty down and receptive to getting together and having fun.
I just wanted to echo that a little bit. I think that's one of the things that drew me to OSU. Obviously, or I shouldn't say obviously, but OSU is a very competitive academic institution, but it's also a very collaborative environment. And our student council works really hard to organize different events throughout the block for us to get together and still like spend time together as a class, even though obviously we're like focused on school. Like I remember we had a Christmas party and we did like a secret Santa exchange, and it was right before the end of our exams. So I literally stopped there for like 5 seconds, but it was still really cool to be able to see everyone get together. I met, got to make friends with someone in my class I hadn't met yet, and just those little things. And then like the after block parties that keep you recharged when it, gets tough academically.
So we're gonna move on to, Allie, did you want to say something?
I was just gonna tell you you're muted, but you're fine.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna move on to our next question. Do you have to go to lecture?
Oh, sorry. I was I can answer from the non-lecture going perspective, because I went to lecture for the first block and then I decided that it didn't work for me. But I will say that I was really lucky in that I found someone who had pretty much like the same approach to studying to me within like the first week of school, and she's now like my best friend. But we hold each other accountable and we will go to the library. And so for the time that they allot for lecture, we're in the library, we're doing our own thing, and we're not just like at home sleeping. But so we don't go to lecture. Everything is recorded, which is really nice at Ohio State, which I'm sure you guys might know from the student council sections talks. But we will watch lecture on 2x speed. We'll talk about the lecture afterwards. There is a ton of flexibility with when we watch them. But I will say that, yeah, you definitely don't have to go to lecture, but it is nice to have someone who shares your study habits, who can hold you accountable to make sure that you are being productive with the time that OSU allots for lecture.
Yeah, and I'm the opposite. So I actually still went to lecture all the way up until like COVID-19 happened, and obviously we're all sitting at home. Lecture usually starts at 8 a.m. I think I saw a question about that. It usually starts at 8 a.m. every day, unless we're super lucky and they start at 9. But for me, I like to go to class. It kind of sets me on a schedule. I can be done with those lectures by like 11 a.m. or noon, and then I do my flex, and then I'm done, and then I just study for the rest of the day. But like for Allie and other people, like it works. So you just have to know yourself and know what you, what situation would be more conducive to your study habits. So, although I might not be going back to lecture after this, but.
I wanted to, so I don't go to lecture. I never went to lecture. The first day I literally tried and I was just like, it never happened again. So, but I think it's, for me personally, I'm also a late night person. Sometimes I stay up till like 1 or 2. So I don't really get started until a little bit later, but it gives me a lot of flexibility of how I've been working, and it's been very helpful. Also, there's 2 different types of material that we learn from. We learn from lectures where someone is in a lecture hall and they speak and they record, and people are there in person. And then we also have something called Flex, which are e-modules that are usually a lot shorter, and they are usually maybe 2 or 3 hours after the lecture stops. But you can do those at any time of the week. They're pre-recorded and just e-modules.
Okay, so our next question is, what kind of clinical exposure do you have in the first year?
So the big thing with OSU is like I want to say it was like in October, was it October? Okay, in October, like early on in your first year, like after the first 9 weeks, you start this thing called LP. It's one of the many L's, and it stands for longitudinal practice. And that's a chance for you to go into an actual clinic every other week and see real patients. So during the summer, OSU sends out all these different forms, and one of the forms that they send out is like an LP site preferencing clinic survey. So it's sort of like, what kind of areas are you interested in? And that information is what they use to sort of place you in a clinic. And I really want to go into pediatrics. I love working with kids. So I put pediatrics as like my number 1. And then thankfully when I got my LP placement, it was at a LP clinic, at a pediatrics clinic in Dublin. So I go there every Wednesday afternoon from like 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Some days the clinic runs longer and some days it runs shorter, but it's just really awesome to be able to sometimes see the things that, and what we do is that during the blocks, like for cardiopulm, what they wanted us to focus on was like cardiopulm diseases. They were like, look for focus on asthma patients or practice your cardiopulm physical exams. And it's really nice because you get to actually see these patients coming in with real illnesses, because we're always in the academic sense, we're always with standardized patients with like these like fake presentations. But then what the really nice thing about LP is you see patients with these real conditions.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing to it. I filled out that same form that Hafsa mentioned, and I stated that I was interested in being an OB-GYN, and I thought that was really interesting. And I was matched with an OB-GYN LP, so I would go to her clinic every other week. But I don't know, I felt like I was really, really fortunate because I learned that like my clinician like specifically kind of like requested to have a, I think like, I want to say she requested someone who was a minority student so that she could like nurture, and then we got placed together. And funny enough, her mentee is my mentor, and she also did the same MedPath post-bac program that I did. So I just feel like the opportunities for mentorship and connections at OSU are very, very strong. So yeah. Okay, and then we'll move on to our next question. What do I have to do to be an SNMA member? I'll answer this question. So SNMA membership requires a few things, and it depends on what year you are in medical school. But as a first-year medical student, there's chapter dues that you pay once for the year, and they're $25. And then there's also a community service requirement that we ask all of our members to do, which is done through our SNMA events because we do a lot of community service. And then also, we ask that if you're a member that you attend. So I think those are pretty much the three things that an M1 would be expected: to pay dues, to show up to our events, and to do community service.
Just to piggyback on what Debbie said, the great thing about being an SNMA member is that you have access to a lot of amazing opportunities. And with my first half of medical school, my first year, I remember being very overwhelmed because there's interest group meetings every week. There's seems like 25 free clinics. There's tons of research opportunities. There's tons of shadowing opportunities. But the great thing about SNMA is that it really distills it down into resources that we have trust in, that we verified, that are going to be meaningful experiences, that are going to provide great mentorship, that are going to make a real impact in the community. And so we send a weekly email out every week with different things that you can get involved in, from shadowing opportunities in OB-GYN or pediatrics, to research opportunities, to free clinic volunteering opportunities. If you want to attend conferences, it's all going to be in that email for you. So you don't have to spend a lot of time, finding those activities and resources. We provide that for you. And that's perfect because the first half of medical school is tough, and, you want to be able to focus your energy where you need to.
And I'll add one more benefit to that. One of the things in addition that you get from being an SNMA member and being on our email list, SNMA actually has a long M1 summer research opportunities document that previous SMA members have put together. And pretty much what that document has is what programs they did, what state that was in, and then also a connect, someone who knows about that program or who's done that program and can kind of give you feedback for it. So that's also a good little plug. Okay, so now we're going to transition into our open Q&A. So you can either hop right on in with unmuting yourself or use the hand raise feature. But now is the time that we're going to ask our attendees to just ask us any questions that you have, and we'll answer them.
If we don't have any questions, I can just start for the students. Thanks, Mom. One question that I remember asking when I went to couple second look weekends was, how did you know that Ohio State was the school for you? How did you choose Ohio State? So maybe we can have a couple people answer that.
Yeah, I can answer that question in collaboration with the question that was just asked on the chat about diversity. I think it's twofold. I think one of the reasons why I came here was because of the diversity and the strong force that has to do with bringing underrepresented minorities into the fold. I think the big thing is I'm from the DMV area, and going to Ohio, it's like in the Midwest, you're like, what's out there? You're not really sure what you're gonna find yourself into. And then you find this pot of gold where you have these amazing individuals that come from different backgrounds that are all really passionate about different things, and then diversity is at the crux of that. And I think for me, seeing like a Dr. Caper's video on minorities and implicit bias and reapplicants just made me feel like it was more than just my number or my score, but as me as an individual, and that I was wanted here. So you want to be wanted, but you also want to achieve and thrive while you're at OSU. And I think this is definitely the place to do it.
So I can sort of answer two of the questions that were asked. So as a Columbus native, I guess first thing first, like I'm a pretty big mama's boy, pretty big grandmama's boy. So it's like kind of easy for me to pick Ohio State to go to since it's so close to family. I have like a lot of my childhood friends here, a lot of my cousins. So it's just like, it's just comfortable. And then also OSU brings together a lot of different people. So it's super easy to find your niche. And just like, it seems like everyone in my med school class is someone I want to be friends with. And then there's another question about if anyone's participated in an international medical service trip. And over winter break, I went to Honduras with this program called Podemos. And I was there for about a week. And what we did was mostly like acute care. So we were in El Progreso, which is like a smaller city. And we would travel to like different rural areas and set up camp there. And we saw like over 800 patients. But while I was there, I was doing things like triage, sort of like being a clinician, like talking to the patients, interviewing them, trying to figure out like their chief complaint. And then also like working in a pharmacy, so like filling out prescriptions, which was definitely a unique perspective and experience.
Okay, I want to answer the first part of the question. I think the first question was, how do we like Columbus from the perspective of people who are from here and not from here? I'm from Baltimore, and it was an adjustment at first. I did a post-bac here, so I was here for a year before I started my first year. And I think like one of my biggest concerns on like choosing OSU was coming from an HBCU. I was wondering, would I feel the same level of support and encouragement from my peers and faculty as I have already experienced for most of my my academic career? And that was a big concern for me, transitioning from an HBCU and moving to a PWI, or predominantly white institution. And I will honestly say that OSU not only surprised me with the level of diversity that I saw in my classmates and faculty, but it also like really gave me a supportive environment. And I think that like, of course, my involvement in SNMA like helped like to have this organization, but overall I will say that like OSU is committed to increasing diversity, and it is committed to making their minority students feel as if that they have a place and a space for us here. And I will say that that was something that really assured me that like this was a school that I could not only succeed and thrive in, but actually enjoy.
I wanted to answer one of the questions that just came up in the chat that was asking about if we feel like the quartile ranking system affects the student culture and the vibe. I feel like it's going to change that answer depending on who you ask and probably when you ask it, how close it is to the exam, etc. But in general, I will say one of the nice things about being a part of Ohio State and being at, you know, a top 30 medical school is at the end of the day, we have a very competitive match rate. And just by being here and learning and absorbing the information the best that you can, you're already setting yourself up to be a very competitive person in the match process. And just outside of that, I think the way that they structure a lot of the learning activities that we do, because we have a lot of like team-based learning where you'll get like matched with random people in your class and you'll have to take quizzes together after taking it independently and see how you would have approached it as a group. And we have a lot of small groups, and it creates a collaborative environment where you really do learn from each other instead of like against each other. And then I will say the last thing is I think just, and this is something that just develops as you go in your med school process. I think for me, one thing that I always keep in mind is at the end of the day, like med school is even though it's a group process and the learning is collaborative, the way that you match and the way that you rank, like you should only be trying to compete against yourself. You know, how someone else is doing is not really something that matters, because that's not going to affect how you're doing. How you're doing is what affects how you're doing. So I think I always just keep in mind that my biggest competition is myself, and I just strive to do better than I did before. So yeah, if you keep those things in mind, then I think that there's not that inherent competition.
Yeah, I wanted to add something else when it comes to the student culture and vibe. We also have a student OSU 2023 study group me, and people make diagrams, charts. I mean, any resource that they see, you know, passwords to different things that they paid for, they put it in the group me, and everybody is willing to share. I mean, it's even yesterday I was on the phone with my friend for like 2 hours talking about one simple LH surge thing. And it's just like, everybody is so willing, like my friends, everybody even on this panel is so willing to like explain things to me and make sure like I also get it. And I think everybody is like rooting for each other's success. I think that's one of the most important things that we care about here.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Tabora said. Like, people, I mean, our classmates here, they're just amazing. Like, people are so willing to share resources. So I don't know what it is about OSU, but even previous years are like that too. Some are more on into the Facebook where they share resources. We stick with the group me, but I feel like our class is just amazing. So I don't really get that sense where it's like that competitive vibe, whether it's like your close circle of friends or just people you don't even know, just sending resources that they probably spent hours on.
Yeah, just to echo, I know everybody's kind of saying the same thing, but one thing that stood out to me, I remember I was kind of at like a first look thing, and one of the students here, he was saying, I came to OSU because it's not about if I'll match, it's about where I'm going to match. So the idea that he's not questioning that OSU is not going to be able to give him the resources to succeed, but rather it's how he's going to use those resources to the best of his benefit. And successfully, he did match. And I think that's kind of the sentiment that I want, in the fact that he is willing to not only, I think also upperclassmen are willing to tell you things of like what they learned and what works and what didn't work. And echoing some of those same sentiments allows you to be successful. And it allows you to use some of your mistakes as learning tools, because we can't all be perfect, but at the same time, we can grow and progress to become the amazing doctors that we hope to become.
We have a question from the chat that I'm just going to pose to the group. Can you please speak to the focus placed on addressing healthcare disparities?
I can speak on that just kind of briefly, because I feel like two people that could probably speak stronger to it are not here. But we have a lot of faculty that are working really hard to eradicate health disparities. And in particular, Dr. Joseph and Dr. Gray, who started a program, which was unfortunately canceled because of COVID, that was going to provide health coaching for Black men in an effort to reduce the health disparities experienced by this population. And they specifically reached out to SNMA to get SNMA members to be co-leaders in these health coaching groups. And it was, to provide functional medicine to improve the health of these populations. So, there's, and these efforts are being recognized and awarded by Wexner. So these aren't just small projects. These are, nationally funded research projects that Wexner is very proud of. And then on top of that, Dr. Gray and Dr. Joseph want medical students, and specifically SNMA students, to be a part of those projects. In addition to that, in our curriculum, I would say they do a decent job. I will say that Dr. Capers is a champion for recognizing disparities, and he had lectures in our cardiopulmonary block, which really highlighted some of the great disparities faced by Black men, and not only addressing that they exist, but here's what we're doing to fix them, and here's what you can do to fix them. So I'm assuming that it will increase as we go further in our curriculum, and we get into more of our clinical phase, or maybe it will decrease, I don't know. But I can say, at least for the first year, Dr. Capers has done a great job of really integrating it into our curriculum, and Drs. Gray and Dr. Joseph have done a great job of involving us in their projects.
I just want to add one quick thing. One thing is the Health Equity Summit, which we'll be having next year. And then also the other thing is that you're exposed to other disparities that are not just specific to us as Black individuals, I think, or underrepresented minorities, like rural health, I think is a big thing here at OSU. Things around cancer, things about opioid use, things that you might not necessarily see in other parts of the country, that I really think OSU, especially the city of Columbus and Ohio, is a great political atmosphere for you to assess disparities across the board. And if you want to get involved, you can get access to Ohio Health Department and get involved in some of those efforts as well.
Okay, thank y'all. I'm gonna post some more questions that the chat is asking. With OSU being such a big school, do you ever feel overwhelmed with resources or lost when it comes to community? Or has it been easy to adapt?
So I'll say, because I came from a very small undergrad, like we probably had about 2,000 students total. But even though OSU Med is technically on main campus, to me, it still feels completely separate. And so to have groups like SNMA and to have like interest groups and things like that, I've never had a sense of feeling like overwhelmed or kind of lost in the sauce, or however you want to say it. And having just people to lean on and like, hey, I'm going through this, and to have people to talk about it with, I've never felt like completely lost. And then in terms of resources and everything, of course, there's literally anything you want, you can get your hands on it. But I've kind of adjusted pretty well. And I think that also just comes from the community and having groups like SNMA to kind of support you along the way.
I'll say like going here for undergrad, like the really amazing thing about OSU is that like the undergrad campus and the medical, they're like sort of like you'll walk into one as in like 2 seconds. So what the nice thing is that there are a lot of resources, but it's awesome because there's so many things that you can use. I think because as a medical student, even though you're an OSU medical student, you're also like an OSU student. So you get all the resources that the undergrads get. So you get to use the RPAC, which is like this amazing, huge gym, and they offer all these different classes. I know that I went to a few of the cycling classes that they had available. It's really popular with medical students. There's different events, like free events that you can get from like the union, where it's like discount tickets. So there's like a lot of things like outside of medical school that the undergrads get to do that you get to do as an OSU student. So I feel like Camry was saying, it can get overwhelming. I know when it was the first week of medical school, there's like 200 people and you're like, I don't know any of these people. How am I ever going to like get a chance to fit in? But it's really easy to find your people. It just sort of happens. I don't know how, but you'll be able to find your people.
Yeah, I just want to touch on that last part about being able to find your people, because I really resonate with that. I think that was a question that just coming from the interview lunches, a lot of people asked, like, OSU is a larger medical school, so do you feel lost? And I think that one of the benefits of going to a larger medical school is it increases the amount of people that you can meet, that you can honestly connect and bond with. Because what's really going to carry you through medical school is going to be the connections that you have and the mentorship that you receive. So I think that like I've really benefited from, getting like kind of like a large pool of people to like kind of like, to form that bond and form that connect with. But I also wanted to mention something I don't think we talked about before. OSU provides their M1s with M2 mentors. And your M2 mentor can be a great resource in terms of just kind of like getting you acclimated to transitioning from life before medical school to life in medical school. And I think that also helps.
And when you do feel overwhelmed, there are resources here for mental health. I think a lot of times we try to, we don't want to be the ones to ask for help, but I think here, when there is a situation, early on, I think it's important to reach out to someone and talk with them, and they can help you find accommodations or whatever you need specifically about whatever you're going through. And I think that is really special, because if you're going through something and you really need attention to it, it might go beyond just, your classmates for support.
Okay.
I see that there was a question in the chat just asking about the way that the quartile rankings are split up. And I would just say, like, if you Google it, you can find it on the internet. Don't worry about it so much. Like, the way that it's split is they basically report where you fall as far as, I think it's split by thirds. So it's like they report the or I don't want to say the bottom, but people in the lower 33rd or lower third. And then the next group would be from the 33rd percentile to the 75th, and then it's like 75th to like 85th or something like that, and then above that is like the top 5 or top 10. So although it's reported, and I know it's hard to not be super concerned about that because grades have always been so important up until this point, but I'll say so much ends up going into how you match. And if you just look things up as far as like what data residencies are looking for, as far as like your preclinical scores, which is what's going into your quartile ranking, that's not really that high on the priority list. So even though obviously you want to achieve and do the best that you can, I would definitely say, especially this early, don't be super stressed about something like that. Just do the best that you can.
Well said, Abina. I see one more question in the chat. Were any of you able to negotiate financial aid?
I don't know if anybody else did, but I definitely did. I would say that you can definitely advocate for yourself. Um, I don't know if we said this before, but congratulations to all of you, first of all, for getting accepted to medical school. That is a huge accomplishment. There needs to be more Black physicians, period. And I think that medical schools recognize that. And so, if you're someone who has been blessed with multiple medical school acceptances, you have a bargaining chip in your pocket. And, I had a really tough decision to make being from Cleveland. I wanted to stay in Cleveland. My top choice was in Cleveland. And I made that known to admissions. And I said, I would love to go here, but, I have an option that is cheaper. And if you can make it a sweeter deal, I would love to come here. And Dr. Capers was great. He worked with me. He was like, give me a week. And then I was able to negotiate to have like a really great financial aid package. But I would say use your bargaining chips if you have them. And if you don't have them, then, you don't have to bluff, but you can advocate for yourself and say, I really want to come here, but this is a tough decision because I feel like financially it just doesn't make sense for me, and then see if they can do anything. I feel like it doesn't hurt to ask, and I always tell medical students that, especially because you are such a hot commodity. So if you have more questions about that, you can PM me and I can send you my number and I can tell you about my wording of my email and stuff like that.
I actually was in a pretty similar position, and I definitely agree with what Alessandra said. I think that once they accept you, they kind of give you all the power there because you have the acceptance. And I had a pretty decent offer back in Chicago, and I likewise reached out to Ohio State, and it definitely helped with a lot of the process. And I think that especially for the minority students, Ohio State's number two in the country and the highest percentage of African American students in their class. So they really care about recruiting high quality African American medical students to their class, and I think it's a priority for them. And they definitely made it felt. So I definitely agree.
Okay, so we have another question in the chat. Most medical students are aware of social issues. So this is kind of prefacing it, but someone's curious about certain components of race relations that tend to be overlooked within the school or come up regularly. Like, I guess just for clarity, is a question asking like, in what ways are race relations overlooked in the school? Or could someone clarify?
I would say just the truth of the matter is, like, our world hasn't necessarily achieved exactly what we would hope we have achieved, and everyone's coming from a different place of background and understanding when it comes to their interaction with the Black face, and I think early on, especially in the beginning, I did have some interactions that were unwelcoming, be it microaggressions, and I didn't feel comfortable. But one thing I did appreciate was the ability for me to talk about that with my SNMA people, like, just being like, yo, this is what happened. It kind of blew me. I'm not really sure, how to deal with that situation. And yeah, like, I mean, I think going to those people helps you to address those situations, because those difficulties are going to come. And those difficulties are going to come not just in your first year, but throughout, because you're going to continue moving up the ranks. And then unfortunately, but hopefully, the number of faces gets less, but we want to increase that number. And I think just having the support people around you, I mean, we can't say that it's not going to be overlooked, because they actually are, but talking about them and making them well known to not only to the student body that that's not okay, I think is important for us to advocate for ourselves.
Yeah, I would also say that in undergrad as well as in medical school, just by nature that there are fewer of us, that there is definitely less of visible, tangible support that you can immediately see at times. And I think that's why, at least for Black men in medicine as well, that's why I'm pretty appreciative of, the support structures there, because, they really treat it like a place, if you're feeling, that you might be being overlooked or something like that, you definitely feel heard there, and you definitely feel supported, and you have a lot of people to talk to about, race relations in medical school and what they might have gone through and how similar it might be to what you're going through. And, a lot of advice can be shared at a lot of these things. So I think those are a lot of good resources to deal with that as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of echo on what other people have said and just emphasize that, it's important to be confident anytime that you are entering into a space where, you're unique in that space. There's going to be some level of discomfort. And I feel like as you go throughout medical school and you see yourself making connections and accomplishing things and, overcoming hurdles that you thought maybe you couldn't get through, that confidence will grow and you'll realize that like you do belong in those spaces. And I feel like you won't question that as much. And then I will say another thing that is nice, and it just depends on what group you get, but at least my LG, which is like the learning group that we meet with every Thursday from like Thursday or Tuesday from 1:30 to 4:30, and you learn about how to be a doctor, and then you talk about different disparities as well. We talk a lot about health disparities. We're a very like political group, and I love that. I think one thing I've really learned, and it's taking me a while to realize because I'm not excusing it, but people really only know from their experience. So sometimes someone may say something that is offensive or ignorant or rude, and they don't even know that they're saying it because from their experience or what they've experienced or the people they've interacted with, those are the interactions that they've had, and they have not yet been told, oh, that's wrong, or it's uncomfortable, or maybe their life experience just like hasn't taught them that yet. And I think a good thing about LG is you're kind of forced to interact and mesh with people that maybe you wouldn't have met, naturally, and it causes you to like grow and learn from different people's experiences. So I think that we do a lot of talking about that stuff, but again, it just depends on who your group is and how close you guys are when we talk about.
Yeah, thanks everybody for sharing. I just want to emphasize something that was stated in the chat in relation to the question. The Black Women in Medicine Roundtable was an event that SNMA held and sponsored. And that was an incredible safe space for everyone to kind of just be extremely honest and extremely vocal about kind of anything that they've had to experience, whether it be microaggressions or whether it be them feeling overlooked or underheard. And I think that the reality in the face of medicine, as has been stated before, is once you're stepping into a new space, you're going to have to. Some people are going to be a bit uncomfortable or not used to change. But I think what I'm so grateful for with SNMA and with OSU is kind of having the mentorship and the guidance to understand how to navigate this space. How to break those barriers and how to succeed. So I want to move on to some other questions that have been asked. If anyone wants to talk about some things that they wish they knew were understood before coming to OSU.
Something that I wish I knew before coming to OSU, I would say there is a lot of pressure early on, especially in the first couple of weeks, to be very involved with as many things as possible. Like a lot of these groups are trying to recruit you. And, I would say that I wish I knew, it's okay to just like, if you to like focus on a few things and not a lot of things, or if you need time and space, like away from like the med campus, then, you should take that time as well. Cause it can get, pretty stressful once the work piles on. I would just say that it's okay, if you need like space or if you need to like do your thing.
So I definitely agree with what Spencer said, but like one regret that I have, and a couple of my friends share this too, is I wish I would have joined Ultrasound. And I know that means nothing to you guys right now because you're not on campus, but you will be asked to join a group called Ultrasound like within the first week of school, I feel like. And I was like, no, I'm good, like ultrasound, schmultrasound. But we did our first like ultrasound experience in cardiopulm, and it was the coolest thing I've ever done in medical school. And I really regretted not joining that. It's a longitudinal program, which I'm sure Amara and Debbie can talk more about, but it's a longitudinal program, and you really need to get that early entry to have that experience. There are opportunities to join later, but unfortunately with COVID, I'm not sure if the summer program is even going to be a viable option. So I'll let Debbie and Amara talk more about that. But that's one regret that I wish I hadn't done immensely. So.
Yeah, I'll speak on BUS. So BUS is beginner ultrasound. And essentially, I think something that I don't think a lot of medical students understood until coming through was also that ultrasound is not something that is just specific to maybe emergency med or to obstetrics and gynecology, but ultrasound is a technology that almost every field is using in some form or some way. So while going through beginner ultrasound, I still don't feel like I know ultrasound that well because I'm still quite a beginner. I will say having that early exposure I'm more comfortable with orienting myself in ultrasound. And I will also say that OSU's ultrasound program is one of the only, I think maybe 2 other medical schools in the nation have an ultrasound program that is as extensive, as well funded, and as supported. And I really do want to stress that having ultrasound as a first year medical student is something that like it's going to help you, especially in your residency training as well. So something to know.
Just to piggyback off that real quick, one of my cousins, she's actually in a residency program in Cincinnati, and one of her cohorts and her co-intern went to OSU, and she was like, oh my gosh, like, why y'all have no ultrasound so well? Like, the girl was so good. She was like, she was reading up books on trying to do ultrasound because she felt like she was so behind the curve. And that made me feel good because I was like, wow, like a lot of times if you know ultrasound now, some of the attendings that you'll be working with won't even really know how to use this technology as well as you will. So you got the upper hand, you know what I'm saying?
I will also say that, ultrasound definitely helps out with, I would agree, like continue on that. Like, that we have this thing called Ultrafest, which is another cool event that Ohio State hosts a bunch of medical schools where a lot of other schools come to do ultrasound and stuff like that. And I was one of the like T-subs, which is basically I let them scan me, and I was on the cardiac scan. And it like, you can learn a lot that actually shows up again and in school, and you can kind of understand ultrasound better. It's definitely a good study aid. And again, yeah, you can sound smart to your attendings too, so which is pretty cool.
A question that was brought up in the chat for those that live on campus. Can you guys touch on what neighborhoods / areas we should look into for apartments? And if I need to look for places with parking, is there adequate street parking?
I live on campus, so there's a lot of housing on campus. So it just depends on like what direction you want to go with it. I live on High Street in an apartment, and there's a parking garage here. So if you live, there are like a lot of newer apartments being built, and I think most of them have parking spaces. But if not, there's free street parking on 8th and 9th. So there's a lot of street parking options. You can also get a parking permit. There's also a parking garage. I know some students that live off campus and commute will buy a parking pass and then park there. And then there's a lot of the housing as well. That's going to be a little bit more affordable than the apartments that is really close to campus within walking distance. So I would say most people, if they live on campus, probably live between like 11th and like 8th or so. And then if you live off campus, people will live in like the, not Short North, what am I thinking of? The Grandview area. So those are like a couple of options.
I live as close to campus as possible. Like you can see Miling from, or not Miling, but Graves at least from my apartment. I live, if you guys know the area, on Neal Ave and 9th. The only thing is the closer you live, the uglier the apartment, unfortunately. If you are looking for more of like a modern look or like a new luxury high rise, you're going to be living further. for me, I knew that if I couldn't get to class like within 5 minutes, I was not going to be going, which ended up not being a problem anyways. But I would say, just so you guys can have an idea, I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I live very close to campus. I have parking behind my apartment. I have laundry in the basement. I pay $700 a month for rent, and then my utilities, everything comes up to be about $100. So just to give you guys an idea of how much I'm paying for where I live.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch base. Parking has been a struggle for me. I don't think it's not easy at all for me. So I would just keep that in mind. I live like around 5 to 7 minutes drive away from the campus. So I'm not able to walk. But the thing that I would recommend is, I'm trying to look for a place that's closer. I would try to say try to get closest as walking distance, because it's very hard to find parking and you don't want to be stressed out about that. What if you missed the bus, you got a TBL, you got something else that you're supposed to be doing? I would just say try to find a place that's closer. I think where Abina, she lives at the Lux Bell. That's around a 10-minute walk. That's pretty decent. I'm not for sure what other apartments, but it's a lot of apartments on High Street that are good. But I think so I don't know if you guys looked on the map, a lot of the apartments are technically like houses turned into apartments. So that's something to realize. In the parking of those houses turned into apartment, you either can get like a NK pass where you can park on the street. Not all street parking, you're allowed to park, only the residents of that area is allowed to park. And a lot of times you can park, like the parking situation on these houses are like just like a backyard type of situation. So I would be cautious of that if you are scared to have your car out in the open.
You're on mute.
Thank you so much. I would have just been talking and not even have known. You're so loyal, Amarachi. Okay. So we aim to wrap this up in the next 15 minutes to respect everyone's time. So we still ask for everyone, if you have any questions, to put them in the group chat, and we'll definitely make sure that they get answered. But we're going to move on to the last part of today's lunch and learn. We're going to ask our panelists to answer as they desire. What has been your favorite memory from your first year of medical school?
I enjoy learning in the anatomy lab. That's been my favorite memory.
I can go. So in November, I shadowed in OB-GYN. It's just like a spreadsheet. You put your name next to a date, you show up, and then you get to shadow. So it was like an awesome experience, completely different from undergrad. I like walked in, and then the residents were like, "We're going to the OR, let's go." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I literally saw 2 back-to-back C-sections. It was my first time seeing a baby get delivered. It was like an amazing experience. So that's something that my favorite memory from OSU so far.
This is such a mundane memory, but I just love this. I don't even remember what final we were all studying for, but there was nobody in the library, and it was just like me and my group of friends, and we were all in different parts of the 4th floor of Pryor. And I just remember like looking around and just being so grateful that I had a community of people, to support me. And even though I was like delirious from studying, and I was like, I had a blanket in the library, and all my friends were there. We all had snacks. We took breaks and like hung out with each other. I think that Tabor might have been like rolling on the table or something, or maybe that was me. But just that's what sticks in my mind about like what's been a positive experience for me, is having a great community of friends.
I think, yeah, going off what Ali said, I'm just like fortunate to have a really good group of best friends that I love. And every time I hang out with them, we always have a really good time and we get a lot done. But I think one memory that sticks out to me is the first block party, because that's when I feel like I really met everyone for the first time. And it was just like so much fun. And it was after like the first block. So everyone was there in our class and everyone was like super high energy. And we did like a giant group swag surf and I didn't know how and no one made fun of me. It was beautiful. But yeah, that was probably like one of the first times where I was like, okay, I don't think medical school is going to be completely studying 24/7 all pain. But
So one of my favorite memories of med school was probably the trip I did to Honduras. So like just from the practical aspect, I got to practice like a lot of clinical skills, but then we also had a lot of time to relax. So like one night we went to a doctor's house. It was like his 60th birthday, and there was like a mariachi band and like a taco stand. Those are like some of the best tacos I've ever had in my life. And then we also spent like New Year's Eve on a beach, and we counted down the New Year's with like a whole bunch of like our new friends, like arms wrapped around each other. My feet were in the water. It was just like a beautiful moment.
I think probably I have a ton of like memories both through school and outside of school that I really like. But like the coolest medical school memory that I have is probably like scrubbing into like the first case that I ever scrubbed into because I was terrified. And like the nurse was watching me, and every time I messed up, she would stop me and make me start over. But once I actually got to watch the procedure, it was super cool. And you kind of feel really cool once you're like gowned up and like in a bunch of like sterile stuff, and it makes you feel like you're actually contributing, even though you're actually like not doing anything. But but it was like so cool to me. I don't know, it was like it's like once you see all like the really cool parts of medicine, it's like really mystifying. I think that was it stuck with me.
Yeah, I want to mention that one of my favorite memories was definitely being with my friends. I think like an anatomy lab, me, Alessandra, and Anna, we just did like a speed like run through the body. It kind of sounds morbid sometimes, but yeah, we do like this speed, like we set a timer like 45 minutes, let's go through the entire heart or whatever the case may be. And I think that was so fun because I was just like looking at them and being like so grateful, like, wow, these people are brilliant. And I'm just like so grateful to be around so many smart people, so many beautiful people. But I think one of like the favorite like practical medical school memories was that I was like scrubbed into a surgery, and I ran up there. I was there like 7 o'clock when the case started, and then we had like some type of mandatory event at Myling. And I was just like looking at the time, I'm like, okay, I can leave here in 5 minutes and make it back to class. And then I went to like the thing, it lasted like an hour. I went back to the hospital and like saw them finish the case. So I thought that was just like, oh my gosh, like what type of place am I at where I'm like, everything is so close and everything is like so open. Everybody's like so receptive to medical students. So I think that was like something that was just like, wow, like I don't think you would get that anywhere else.
Yeah, I would just say one memory I had, which kind of, it's not necessarily a sad story, but I remember it was like the first week of cardio pulm, and I was just like, yo, this med school thing, man, I don't know. Like, I was having a lot of doubts about where I was, if I deserved to be here. And I remember that day was so busy, and I had a shift at the free clinic that night. I was like, I'm not really trying to go to this free clinic. It's been a really down day, but I went. And it was my first time in the free clinic, and wow, like I connected with a young Black woman, and she had never been to an OB-GYN. She had never seen a doctor in many years. And she was Nigerian. So she appreciated the fact that first I pronounced her name right, and that we could just have a conversation about her health. And it just made me feel like so empowered to be like, you know what? No, this is why I came here. I came here to like represent people. And I think that it reinvigorated me to know that like, even though like in the times you feel the most discouraged, you may have not gotten 100 out of 100 on that thing, you will fail at some times here. Like you have to recognize that you deserve to be here. And when you put that white coat on, it just makes you feel like, wow, like I'm the future of medicine and I'm here to stay. So I think that was one of the most impactful moments for me. Like and I think till this day, that's gonna carry me forward.
Yeah, one of mine was actually at LP. I had gotten there that afternoon, and most of the time my preceptor is really good about being hands off and just letting me do whatever I want to do. I'll come out, present the patient case, and she's like, okay, so what do you want to do? What do you want to prescribe? Like, she's very supportive in that manner. But I remember she was about to send me in a patient's room, and she was like, I just need you to be cautious. She's kind of one of our more difficult patients, so it might be hard for you to get a lot of information. And so, of course, in my head, I'm like, okay, how do I want to approach this? And I just went in, had the best conversation with her. I did everything I was supposed to do medically, but like we talked about her life, her kids, all of that. And when I went to do her physical exam, as I was going to listen to her heart, she actually stopped me and said, you're going to be a great doctor one day. And like, for me, that just made me feel like so affirmed. It made me feel like, yeah, this is why I'm here. Kind of like Amara, but like that really changed the trajectory of my day. So that's my favorite memory.
Alrighty, everybody. I just wanted to say thank you again so much for all of the panelists who came. I want to say congratulations to all of our attendees for getting accepted to medical school. You guys did it, and I am so excited about and for all of you. We really, really hope that you choose the Ohio State College of Medicine. We'd welcome you guys, we'd support you guys, and we'd encourage you guys. Someone says, wait, before everyone leaves, can we start a group me or something? I'm down. I'm down. But yeah, we wanted to share with you guys our social and our connect. Our IG is at OSUmed_SNMA, and that's our Twitter as well. And we're going to forward you all of our contact information so that you can reach out to us individually if you have any questions. And again, I just wanted to say, thank you so much for coming. I've had a blast with you guys, and I hope that you've enjoyed it too.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Expect a follow-up email from us, okay? Congratulations.
Bye.
It was nice meeting you guys. Thank you.
Bye.
I have a great weekend.